guys, and welcome back to my video. So in this video I'll continue with our e-commerce series using Flutter. So in this series we are going to be retrieving categories from Firebase Firestore. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to go to our Firebase dashboard, right? We need to go to our Firebase dashboard, and then the first thing that we need to do is you need to go to get started, and then you must start in production mode, and then choose the location that's near you. So now that it's done setting up Firebase storage, what we need to do is we need to create a folder called categories. So, and then just click add folder. So let's just create a folder called categories, and let's just add the folder. So in this categories folder, what I'm going to do is I'm going to upload a few icons. So I'm just going to in my downloads, and then I'm just going to upload a few icons. So I'll include these icons in my GitHub repo. Okay, so now that we have our categories, what we need to do is we need to go to access token. This where it's written access token. So just copy this access token, and then we go into our Firebase Firestore database. Make sure that your Firestore database, make sure that it's in production mode. That make sure that it's allowed you to read and write data. Okay, so let's go to the data, and then we need a collection. So our collection is going to be category. Our collection name is going to be categories. So just add this collection name, and then the next thing that we need is the document ID. So just for the document ID, we just use the auto ID, and then for the field name, we are going to have the image field, and then the value we just leave it as a string, and then we go to the name. So for the name, let's just say it's surgical instruments. Let's just say surgical instruments. So let's just go back to our Firebase file storage. I just want to check it's contraceptive. Okay, so let's go back to our Firebase Firestore, and then this should be contraceptives. Let's just update it. So let's go back again into our Firebase storage, and then let's just copy this access token, and then we are going to go back, and then we create another document. Let's just add another document, use auto ID, so the image, and then we paste the access token, which is the image download URL, and then the name, we're just going to call it cough syrup. Okay, and then let's go back again, and then let's copy this access token. Then let's go back again into our categories. Let's add a document, and then the auto ID, the image, we are going to put the download URL, and then the name. Let's just put the masks. Let's just say masks. Okay. Let's go back again to our storage categories, and then let's copy the access token for the surgical instruments. And then we just do the same thing that we've been doing all along. Auto ID, image, and then we paste the download URL. And then the name is going to be surgical instruments. Okay, now we're done with setting up the database site. So let's actually move into the code, and let's see how we are going to retrieve these categories in Flutter. Okay, so coming back to our Flutter project, we need to just set up a few folders in our Flutter project. So the first folder is going to be constants. So let's just create that folder, constants, and then the next folder that we need is core, and then the next folder that we are going to need is controllers. And then okay, so okay, I made a mistake. Let me just delete this folder. So it's controllers. Okay, so inside the core folder, that's where we are going to put our error handle. That's where we are going to handle most of our errors in Flutter. So it's a common practice that you must handle errors in a proper manner, so that if anything wrong happens, it should notify the user about the error in simple form, right? So we are going to have a class called failure.dat. We are going to have so this class is going to be a F. So this class is just going to display a string message about the failure. Then let's provide the constructor. Okay, now that we are done, now the next class that we need is what we call type defs, or type definitions, right? So here we need a package called named fp.dat. So just go to pub.dev packages /fp.dat, and then you go into the pubsec.yaml, and then just paste this package below the dependencies. Paste it below the dependencies. Okay, now let's add a couple of dependencies. I can see that there are some dependencies that are missing. Flutter, Firebase, dependencies. So we already have Firebase core and Firebase auth. So what we need is we need Firebase firestore. Okay. Okay, let's it's supposed to be pubdev. Okay, so let's copy it and then let's paste it below. And then we also need Firebase storage. So let's say Firebase storage. Yeah. So let's copy it and then let's also paste it inside our pubsec.yaml, and then let's wait for it to finish running. Okay. Now that our pubsec.yaml is finished updating our dependencies, so what we are going to do is we are just going to say type definition of we are going to future either. So I'm just going to explain what this either is. Of type T is equals to the future of either. Failure. And then type T. So we need to import this either. fp.dat from fp.dat, and then we also need to import the failure.dat. Okay, so okay, this should be a small letter v. Okay, so you might be wondering what's this either. So here we're just giving this type definition, future either of type T is equals to the future of either. So what this either class does, that it allows for two objects, right? It allows us to have two objects. We have the failure and the type T object, right? So that means that the either class, what the either class does is that these objects do not exist at the same time. So that means that if there is that means that in our project, if we are going to have a success, let's say getting categories from Firebase, there is no way we are going to have a success and failure at the same time. So what this either allows us, it allows us to only have one object at the same time. For example, on this, as you can see on this left hand side, we have the failure. So that means if there is a failure, we're only going to get the left-hand side, which is failure. If there is a success of type T, we are going to get the success of type T on the right-hand side. And then also defined another type definition of future void, which is future either. This one is going to just return a void, right? So now let's go into our services folder. If you see, we have this services folder. What we are going to do is we are just going to say categories .dat. So in here, that's where we are going to get categories from Firebase, firestore. So in our categories service, let's just create a class called category service. So okay, before we do that, let's go into our models folder. So into our models folder, we have the categories model. So what we need to do is we need to just generate a data class. Okay, so now that we have generated a data class, if you don't know how to generate this data class, I'll put the code. You just copy the code from the GitHub repository. So in our category service, the first thing that we need to do is we need to initialize the Firebase firestore. Firebase firestore. So let's just import the dependence. Wait, let's just see in the pub/sec.yaml. We have cloud firestore. Okay. Okay. And then let's create the constructor. So it's just say required Firebase firestore firestore. And then we just need to set up this Firebase firestore to the one in our constructor. So it should be required. Okay, so now we are going to get the categories. To get the categories, what we are going to use the stream. So a stream is part of asynchronous programming in that it allows us to get a stream of data. For example, if we have data from our API, we can just get it as a stream, just like water. Water flows in a stream of water, so our data will be coming in the form of a stream. So what happens is that, let's say if you connect a pipe to a tap, that means the water will flow from the tap to the source that you want your water to flow to. The same applies with a stream. A stream allows us to listen. In this case, we are listening to Firebase firestore. Okay, so we are going to need a stream which is going to be a list of categories, right? So let's check categories model. So let's just rename it to category. Okay, let's just get rid of everything. And then let's generate the data class. Okay, so let's go back in our categories service. Let's rename it. Here it's written categories. Let's just rename it to categories service. Okay, a stream of categories, right? Okay, we named it as category. I'm sorry, it's supposed to be category. Okay, and then let's import it. And then it's going to be there's the get categories. And then we are going to return in the constants. Let's go in our constants, and then in our constants let's create a class called Firebase constants. Firebase constants dot dat. Then let's just class Firebase constants. So in this class we are going to say string categories is equals to categories. Okay, I'm sorry, this must be a constant since these variables are not going to change. Okay, categories, right? Let's check what did we name our, yeah, it's categories. Okay, so let's go back, and then in our category service category service, before we need to get the collection reference, that is the reference of where our categories are, and then I'll just gate categories goes to firestore. firestore dot collection, and then we are going to just say Firebase Firebase constants. So let's just import this class. Okay, Firebase constants dot categories. Okay. Now that we have our collection reference, we are just going to return categories dot snapshot of the data, and then we are just going to map through the documents. We're just going to map through the documents. As you can see, these documents. So what we are going, we'll be looping through each document, right? So we are just going to map through the document. So first we need to create a list, an empty list of categories. An empty list of category that we are just going to call categories. This goes to the empty list, and then we are just going to say for event dot docs. So what we are going to do is we are just looping through that for every document in event.docs, event.documents. So we are just going to say that for every document in the categories, we are just going to say categories dot add, and then we're going to say categories dot from category dot from map. I'm just going to document dot data, the data in the documents as map string dynamic. And then after this, we are just going to return the categories. Sorry, let's copy this inside. We are just going to return the, okay, let's just say categories list, so that we do not, so that it does not conflict with this. Let's just say categories list. Return categories list. Okay. So what are we doing here? We are retrieving a stream of categories from Firebase Firestore, and then we are just returning the categories snapshot, and then we are going to map through each and every document in our categories. So as we map through each and every document in our categories, we are going to add the data in our documents inside our categories list, and then here we are just converting this data from our documents from the JSON format into the object-oriented format that Flutter understands. Okay. So now that we have done this, the next thing that we need to do is we need to make this categories service folder accessible in the categories controller. So how do we do that? So we just say final categories service provider is equal to the provider. If you still remember the last time in the previous episode we talked about riverpod. So what it does is that riverpod, it allows us to access any type of state in any parts of our application. So we are just going to provide the reference to the categories service class. But as you can see, we have this firestore variable that's in our constructor int. This firestore variable is required. So how do we go about it? So how do we go about it? So if we go into our folder, we have this providers folder. We can just create a file called Firebase providers. Firebase providers .dat. So what we are going to do is we are just going to say final Firebase firestore provider is equal to provider, and then we provide the reference to Firebase firestore dot instance. So we're just providing this. So what we need to import first is a riverpod package. Then we need to let's just go into our category service. Then let's just copy this cloud firestore, this import statement for cloud firestore. Let's just paste it. Is it refusing? Okay, Firebase firestore. Okay. So to save us time in the next videos, I'm just going to do this for this is supposed to be instance. We're also just going to do it also for the auth provider. Firebase auth provider is goes to provider. We provide the reference. We also do it for the Firebase. We also do it for the Firebase storage. Okay, now let's import the Firebase auth. Let's also import Firebase storage. Okay, let's just go back into our Firebase storage. Let's just copy this import statement. Let's just copy it and then let's paste it. Okay, so now that we have the Firebase providers, what these Firebase providers does is that as you can see, we have this Firebase firestore provider. It allows us to access it anyway in our file. For example, here, as you can see, here our category service requires an instance of Firebase storage. So what we are just going to do is we are just going to say reference.watch, and then we are just going to say Firebase. What did we name it here? We just say Firebase firestore provider. As you can see, now we just need to import the folder. Semicolon, and then we just need to import. It's Firebase firestore provider. Just copy it like this. Let's just paste it in. Okay, let's just import it. As you can see, now we have our categories service. So now we need to go into our categories controller. So before we go into our categories controller, I would like to explain the architecture of this application, why we are using the category service categories controller. Okay guys, so in this video we are going to be using this architecture whereby we have the service, we have the controller, and then we have the widgets. So what's happening is that the controller is going to monitor the changes from the services. Okay, so what's going to happen is that the service is going to get the data from the Firebase Firestore, and then the controller is going to monitor if there are any changes in the services using the reference.watch, which is a riverpod way of monitoring changes in the providers. And then the widgets are going to monitor if there is any change in the controller and then update the UI according to the changes, or the user is going to trigger certain events that are going to request data from the controller, which is going to request data from the from their services, right? So now going back into our four projects, we have to go back to the controllers folder. In the controllers folder, so let's just have the category controller dot. So in the categories controller, what we are going to do is that we are going to create a class. We are going to create a class categories controller. This class is going to extend a state notifier from riverpod, and then the state is going to be of type bool, or type boolean. So what happens is that if we go into riverpod's documentation, we can see that the state notifier is used to exposing an immutable state which can change over time after reacting to custom events. So if you remember, I say that if the user triggers certain events in our user interface, this is going to trigger a state change from the controller, right? So that's how we are going to use the state notifier from riverpod. Okay, so let's just import the riverpod package. Okay, let's import the riverpod package. Okay. Okay, so let's just go into our services folder, and then let's just import. Let's just copy the riverpod import statement, and then let's paste it in our categories controller. What's going on? It should be state notifier. Okay. State. Okay, state notifier. So is we are going to have the category service. And then we are going also to have the reference from riverpod. Then also we need the instance for the Firebase storage. For the Firebase storage service. So let's just leave this one. We'll come back and do refactoring in the next video. Okay. So and then we're just going to say categories controller. Then it's going to take the category service. Then also we need the reference. And then we need to set this. Okay. The category service is goes to category service. And then the reference is equals to the reference. Okay, and then also we need to set super, which is equal to false. Okay. So in the categories controller. So in the categories controller, we are just going to have a stream, which is going to be a list, of categories. And then we are just saying get categories in the stream. And then let's import. So this is supposed to be category, a list of category. And then let's import this. Okay. So we are going to return the category service dot get categories, as you can see. So we are just going to return the categories. Sorry, I forgot. As you can see. So now, as you can see, we are in our category service here. We have this method, the get categories. As I said, the category service is responsible for getting these categories from the Firebase Firestore. And then we are just going to get this categories. We're going to return the category service, and then we get the categories from the category service, right? So that's it with that's all about the categories controller. Now what we need to do is we're just going to say final categories controller provider is equal to state notifier provider. State notifier provider. So in the state notifier provider, what we are just going to do is we are going to return state notifier provider which is a provider of type categories controller. Categories controller, and also boolean. Then we're going to have a reference. So here what we are going to do, we are just going to say final categories service is equals to ref.watch. It's equals to ref.watch. So what we want to watch is we want to watch this category service. So we want to watch if there are any changes to this categories then it will automatically update our provider. So let's just copy this categories service provider. Let's paste it. are going to return the categories controller, and then the category service we are going to just pass in. We are just going to pass in the categories service provider that we are the category service that we are monitoring from the category service provider, and then we provide the reference. Then, like, once we are like this, we are done with the categories controller. But we also need to get the products, right? So to get the products, what we are going to do is we are just saying final get products provider is equals to a stream provider. Since remember that we are getting our data from Firestore as a stream, so we need to use the stream provider. And then we are just going to return categories controller provider dot get. Okay. So before we do that, we need to assign. We're just going to say final categories controller is equal to reference dot watch categories controller provider dot state dot notifier. Okay, and then we're just going to return the categories controller dot get categories, and then let's just provide the semicolon. Okay, so what's happening here? So here we've created a categories controller which extends the state notifier. As we have said, we say that the state notifier exposes an immutable state which can change over time, reacting to custom events. So in this case, reacting to events that the user is going to trigger, right? So we have initialized our category service class, and then we have initialized the reference, which is a reference object from riverpod that allows us to access providers. And then we have created this categories controller constructor. We have provided the category service and the reference, and then we have set these constructors to our variables up there. And then here we have this stream, which is a list of category stream, which is going to return the categories that are in the category service. So after that, we have then created the categories controller provider. So what this categories controller provider is going to do is it's going to allow us to access method inside our categories controller. So we've created this categories controller provider, which extends the state notifier provider, which extends the state notifier provider, which is of type categories controller and also boolean, and then which takes in also the reference parameter. So we then use this reference parameter. To listen to the category service provider. So what this category service provider does is this one. What this category service provider does is allows us to listen to the changes that are going to happen in the services provider. Right. And then we are going to return the categories controller class. After doing that, we have created another stream provider for getting the products. Um, Stream provider for getting the products from. This is supposed to be return. That allows us to get products, which is a type of stream provider, since our product, we are going to retrieve our products as a stream. So it's going to be stream provider, and then we have firstly we need to initialize or to watch the categories controller to see if there are any changes in the categories controller. We then return the products from the categories controller. So in the next section, we are going to load our data into our database, into our widgets, right? And see. Okay, we're getting missing plugin exception, no implementation for my on channel plugins. Okay, so we are getting an error. So let me just check where this error is coming from. Okay guys, so I just found out this error is closed. To fix this error, you just need to stop the debugger and then restart debugging again. Yeah. Okay, so this error is mainly caused by the minimum SDK is 20. So it's saying that the Cloud Firestore a higher Android SDK. So let's try SDK 20. So let's just go into our Android. Let's just go to Android. And then in the build.credo. So in the minimum SDK, let's just change it to 21. And then let's try again to debug our application. So as you can see, we have finally loaded our categories from Firebase Firestore. As you can see, before they were even loaded, there was a loader that was loading. So that's how we retrieve our categories from Firebase Firestore. Please make sure you click on the thumbs up button, subscribe, and turn the notification bell on so that you do not miss the next episode where we are going to retrieve categories, where we are going to retrieve products from Firebase Firestore. Thanks for watching, guys. Cheers.